Let's dive right in. Let's just to start by assuming that nobody knows anything about this topic. So for those people who aren't familiar with what conversational adoption counseling is, how would you describe it?
Absolutely. So conversational adoption counseling is really sitting down and talking to your clients, having that conversation, as the name suggests, to find them a good pet. It's really a form of matchmaking. And this is in lieu of a lengthy application or interview. So it's really getting to know your client, establishing a bond, and then using your vast knowledge of the animals in your care to help them find a good fit for their home. It's about, finding the animal that's right for them. So it's more about saying yes and far less about saying no. We're always looking to find the right fit for the right family.
That certainly makes sense. So you've got some videos prepared for us tonight to sort of demonstrate these techniques. You want to set up the first one for us?
Sure. So the first one is just kind of a basic overview. This would be a basic conversational adoption session, and just, with that outcome of being an adoption. So with that, let's roll that first clip and see what that looks like. Hi, I'm Allison. Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you.
What's your name?
Lucas.
Hi, Lucas. Are you here to maybe check out some kittens?
Yeah, I'm looking to bring a kitten home for me.
Great. You've already filled out our adoption survey and everything.
Yes.
Okay,
yeah.
Wonderful. Do you have any other pets at home?
No, just me.
Okay.
So I'm looking for a friend.
Oh, great. Well, let's see if we can find someone for you. So let's take a look around.
Okay.
So these guys, it looks like they are ready to go home today. We've also got Baskin Robin. Actually, Baskin Robin looks like she has an adoption pending.
Okay.
We've also got these guys. They just came in.
Okie doke.
So they're not quite ready to go yet. They still need to be spayed and neutered.
Okay.
But you could definitely visit with them, and we could place them on hold for you if you were interested. And then we would just give you a call when they're ready.
Okay.
We've got Roger up here. He is ready to go today. He got his neuter surgery yesterday. And then we have a few more down here. Is there anybody at this point that...
How you doing? Hi.
Are you looking for anything in particular?
Not really. I think kind of just a little bit of a bigger guy, kind of like him.
Okay.
The little ones really kind of, I worry about them getting lost somewhere in my apartment.
Fair.
So
Yeah.
I think this guy might be a good kind of size for me. What's up, buddy? What's up?
Oh,
You look so cute.
well, would you like to do like a one-on-one visit with him?
Yeah, that'd be great.
Okay, wonderful. If you want to take a seat on the bench, I'm going to grab a towel for him, and we'll get him all set up. Hi, yes, it's very nice. Oh, you're purring. Sweet boy. Sweet boy. Yeah, he looks a little feisty.
Oh, what are you doing?
All right.
Hey, handsome.
We'll
What's
have
up?
you visit, and then what I will do is I will take a look and see what we know about him. So let me just look him up here.
Okie doke.
All right. So it looks like he came in as a stray about a month ago. A Good Samaritan brought him in, and he went right into a foster home. He was a little too small, a little too young to go up for adoption right away. So it looks like he did great in the foster home. He was the only little boy there.
Okay.
But it sounds like he was doing really well, playful, eating well. He did have a little bit of trouble eating right at the beginning when he first went into the home, but has been doing great so far. When he first came in, he did get his initial round of vaccines. So feline distemper combo vaccine, and then he also got a flea, tick, and heartworm preventative.
Okay.
And he just came back from foster yesterday. So he got neutered.
Okay.
And it looks like that went well. And then it sounds like you live in an apartment.
Yeah.
Are there any pet restrictions or requirements?
No, so when I signed my lease, I knew I kind of wanted a pet in the future. So all I was looking at was making sure that I could have one, and then he just gets added to my rent expenses.
Yes, of course.
Of course, yeah.
Good. I always like to ask to make sure,
Definitely.
that people at least know
Yeah.
kind of what they're looking at there, because sometimes there is that pet rent that comes up.
Yeah, when I moved in, I was expecting that I wanted to get a cat at some point. So
Sure.
I looked into it before I signed to make sure that it wasn't like a no pet place, because that would be too bad.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Do you have any questions about kind of like owning a kitten or how to get that set up? Or...
Yeah, so he would be my first one that I've owned by myself. So I've never had a kitten before, but I know like just kind of getting them acclimated to space over time, and then as they kind of get older and stuff, taking them to the vet for check-ins. I imagine it's similar to like when you have a baby and you keep up with them and stuff like that.
All right, so when you get a kitten home, we always recommend that you start the kitten in their own room just to do some acclimating. It could be a couple of days to a couple of weeks, depending on the comfort level of the cat. Usually kittens tend to acclimate pretty quickly. So you won't really have to worry about, you know, them being too fearful, but you'll want to start a space. It could be a bedroom or a bathroom, an office. It also works, but something where you can close the door. Make sure that they have all of their stuff. So, you know, his litter box and his food and water, bed, toys. Get him all set up in there and have him just kind of hang out in there until he starts to feel more comfortable, starts to settle in. Obviously, you spend as much time with him as you want. And then as he's getting more comfortable, you want to then start allowing him into the larger space. And then when he's fully acclimated, you can let him have free roam of the house and you can start moving his stuff around a little bit too. So he doesn't have to be confined to one room. So we feed wet food and dry food here. Tablespoon in the morning, tablespoon in the evening for the wet food. And then we also feed dry food. We free feed the dry food. So he always has access to it. And at the time of adoption, we'll send you home with a small bag of that. So how do you feel? What are you thinking?
I feel really good about him. I think he's the one. He's really sweet.
Wonderful. So he is ready to go home today. So if you are ready, we can go up to the front. We'll put him back in his kennel. We'll go up to the front and we can finalize the paperwork. Or if you'd like, we can do a 24-hour hold if you need to get things ready at home. It's completely up to you.
I feel like I'm ready. I got some things at home. I don't have a carrier yet, but that can be something in the future. We can just bring him home and probably, I imagine you have like the cardboard boxes or the kind that fold.
We certainly do. And we also have some carriers available up front for purchase too. So if you want to take a look there and if you see something that will work for you, we can do it that way too.
Cool stuff. Well, yeah, I think he's the one. He's really, really, really sweet.
All right. Well, wonderful. So yeah, if we want, let's go ahead and put him back in his kennel and we'll go up front and we'll finish that paperwork.
That was great. So noticing that, a couple of things that I take away is that it feels like the goal is to just establish that rapport and keep it conversational. It's felt like you learned a little bit about the customer in question and you told them a little bit about the cat. Am I on the right track? What kind of is the goals that you're trying to do?
That absolutely is the goal. And, you know, certainly, as you can see in the video clip, there's lots of opportunities for more things. So if he had more questions about how to acclimate a kitten or had never had a kitten, by opening up that conversation, you are then asking those open-ended questions and you're going to get more information from the client and they're going to get more information from you as well.
And that approach feels like we saw a kitten there, officer, a cat there, obviously, but it feels like that. Does that change much between cats and dogs or other animals for that basic?
It really doesn't. The flow of the conversation tends to be about the same for any animal that you're adopting out. I always like to as well make sure that I give the client as much information as we have on the animal. Now, in the clip, like I have a tablet, but you certainly don't need to have that kind of technology. If you have that information on their kennel card, you can take a look at that. Also, if, you know, we don't have a tablet and you can always leave the client with the animal, get them set up with a visit and then just say, hey, spend a few minutes, I'll be right back. Go grab a computer or, you know, whatever you need to find that animal's record, take a look at it. And then you can come back to that client and say, hey, you know, here's all the information we have on this, you know, pet. And how does this sound?
That makes perfect sense. Okay, so the next clip that you have set up for us is sort of along those similar lines, but I understand that you're going to be showing us how you might handle the conversation, some of the nuance you might deal with if the animal had a medical condition. Is that correct?
That's correct. Yeah. So this clip has a little bit of it has a cat that has a little bit of a medical thing going on and just sort of how you navigate that conversation in the simplest way. So let's roll that clip and see what that kind of looks like.
Oh, don't leave.
Hey, how's it going?
It's going really good. She's really, really sweet.
Great. Wonderful. Well, I've just come back to check on you, and I brought my tablet, so I want to give you a little bit more of her background and information. And So yeah, so I was looking her up. It looks like she came in as an owner surrender.
Okay.
So we didn't really get, sometimes we get a profile filled out by the previous owner. Unfortunately, in this case, we didn't get one filled out. So I don't really know what her life was like in her previous home.
Okay.
But I know that she was surrendered, it looks like for some medical reasons.
Okay.
So when she first came in, she had like really patchy skin. She was losing some hair.
Okay.
So we did keep her kind of in our back area and had our shelter medicine team, work with her, see how she was doing. So one of the first things we did was treat for fleas and ticks. Sometimes cats can have something called flea allergy dermatitis, where they're really, really allergic to fleas. So their body kind of overreacts to having that flea infestation. So we went ahead and treated her for fleas. We also started her on a prescription diet that is designed for allergies. And she's been doing really, really well on that food. Now that is something that is a prescription and will need to be purchased through a veterinarian. We are thinking that she does have kind of a long-term allergy. Allergy testing is available for cats, but it's kind of outside of our scope of ability here. So what we recommend for her adopter is that they follow up with their veterinarian and keep her on this food. And then for the allergy testing, that's something that can be done through most vet clinics. It's usually a couple of $100s, and that will pinpoint exactly what she is allergic to. Is this going to be something you're comfortable potentially taking on?
Yeah, it just sounds like a lot. I've never had a cat by myself before, so it sounds like a lot for kind of being my first cat.
Yeah,
so she's really, really sweet, but she might be best for someone that's a little more comfortable with that.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, well, we can take a look around and see. We've got a few others around, so you're looking for females. So we'll take a look at who we've got, and hopefully we can find you somebody that doesn't have maybe, kind of a long-term medical needs. So that, especially since this is your first cat.
Yeah, that's kind of my concern about it. But,
sure.
Well, thank you. You were very sweet, baby girl.
So my takeaways from watching that are that sort of the keys are, again, keeping that conversational tone, being really sort of direct and straightforward with somebody, and very non-judgmental about whatever situation is best for them. Is that accurate, or what are the differences when you're talking about a cat with medical, or an animal with medical conditions?
Sure. So I think it's important to be thorough and be straightforward, like you said, but it's also important to, when I'm reading off that tablet, when we have our information, like there's some very technical information in there that's written by like our shelter medicine team, but it's important to kind of put it in language that is conversational and a little and less sort of technical. If I just stood there and read the waiver or the notes exactly as is, that can be difficult for somebody, they're going to zone out and they're going to be like, I don't know what that word was, but I'm just going to roll with it. So it's important to kind of humanize and, sort of simplify some like a major medical condition and just sort of lay out what the basic steps are. Obviously, if we have a cat with allergies, we haven't done allergy testing like in that example, we're not going to know exactly, but we can give that too. We're going to say, this is what we do know. This is what we don't know, or this is what we could anticipate. And then just sort of, asking the client how comfortable they are. Because some clients, like in this case, will be like, you know what, this, I'm looking for a cat that doesn't have any medical concerns, or they may come back with some specific questions about like, is this monthly? Does this have an end? What does that look like? And that again opens up that conversation because we will be able to kind of give some guidance, and then they can really, really make an informed decision based on that.
That makes perfect sense. So great. Well, thank you for that. Now the next video, the third video we're going to look at is, I believe, also with a cat. But really the concept that we're trying to cover, I think, in your video is how does the conversation change when we're dealing with somebody who already owns a pet, and how might that work, and what considerations are there?
Yes. So this would be introducing, a newly adopted pet to a resident pet. So let's see how that conversation might go. Let's roll that clip. All right, so I know you have a kitty at home and you're looking for a buddy. What's your kitty's name?
His name is Percy.
Okay, so Strawberry here is lovely. There's a couple of cats in this room. As you know, we've met with a few, but they all came from the same home. There were just too many animals in the previous home. But her previous owner described her as being really outgoing, really friendly, and as you can see, she definitely is. She's also really good friends with the other kitties, so I think that probably this is going to be a good fit for your home.
Okay.
Has Percy ever had another kitty friend?
No, not before. I know when he was in the shelter, he'd seen other cats and everything, and he wasn't like extremely afraid or anything.
Yeah.
But he's never met anyone one-on-one.
Yeah, no worries. So what I'm going to recommend is we have a full handout as well. So we'll send that home with you. But for introducing cats together, basically the slower the better.
Yeah.
It might, you know, in best case scenario, it's going to take a couple of weeks.
Okay.
I mean, and the longest, it might be actually a couple of months. It can happen. So what you'll want to do is start Strawberry off in her own space. So she'll have her own room. That could be an office, a bedroom, something like that. A bathroom works too.
Okay.
And just make sure she has all of her own stuff. And that gives your kitty, Percy, a chance to get used to the idea of having a kitty in the home. And it gives her a chance to acclimate to her new home, right?
Okay.
Because it will be a new environment for her and she'll get a chance to kind of get on her feet.
Yeah.
And then just really letting them kind of greet through the door first. You might want to, if you feed Percy, I might feed him right outside the door and feed Strawberry right outside her door so that they are kind of they're getting to smell each other, they're getting the idea of each other. If it's going well, you may see some playing under that door, right?
Yeah,
That's a really good sign. It means that they're getting used to each other and they're, you know, liking the idea of another cat. Don't be discouraged by things like, you know, hissing, growling. That's really normal. Everybody's getting used to the idea of having each other around, and just new and novel things can be stressful at first. So definitely don't let that discourage you. Just take it really, really slow. Once they have spent some more time together, then you might want to try some scent swapping. So take a toy of Percy's and put it in Strawberry's room, and take one of Strawberry's toys and put it in somewhere where Percy hangs out a lot.
Yeah.
And then if that seems like it's going well, then what you can do is go ahead and start opening up Strawberry's room with some like supervised visitation.
Yeah.
See how they do together. As they get more comfortable, then you can start spreading that out and, you know, let her kind of get used to the house, and, you know, let them get used to each other once they're fully acclimated. I would recommend at least 2 litter boxes and that they be in different areas. If you have multiple levels of your house, I'd recommend 1 on each level.
Okay.
But that means that they won't, you know, there won't be sort of fighting over litter box resources as well.
Yeah.
In the wild, cats are solitary creatures. They do get along with each other, but sometimes you can have a litter box or litter boxes in one cat's territory and then the other cat can't get them. So to, you know, minimize any kind of stress there, that's what I would definitely recommend.
Okay, that makes sense.
And then feeding them, you know, wet food at the same time every day. They don't have to be fed like right next to each other, but that builds some camaraderie as well.
Okay.
Do you have any questions or?
I'm just wondering, like, what kind of signs of stress of the cats that I could be looking for to kind of know how they're doing as they're getting to know each other.
You're looking for like crouched, tense bodies, low growling. You might hear that, flattened ears, dilated pupils. Those are all signs of stress in cats.
Okay.
So if you're seeing any of those signs, somebody's stressed out.
Yeah.
Again, that doesn't mean that it won't work out eventually, but it means that, you know, either Percy or Strawberry are experiencing those levels of stress.
Yeah.
They may swat at each other too. That is, you know, that's a way of saying back off.
Yeah, definitely.
And that's normal. So just, you know, kind of let them see kind of where they land. Also, just know too, if you've tried everything and it's really not working out, they're just not friends. We always welcome our animals back too. So no worries there.
Yeah.
I know no one wants to return an animal. I totally understand that, but we also want to make sure it's a good fit. And if you feel like this is really not working for anyone, that's okay. We can make that work, and we'll help you find somebody else who might be a better fit too.
Okay, that's really good to know, because I would hate if they don't get along to kind of make them just stay together.
Sure.
Stressful for me and for them. We'd all be stressed.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, we definitely don't want that for anybody. And,
absolutely.
You know, I'm sure that we can find you the right fit. I think that Strawberry is probably a fantastic fit, but you know, just in case something doesn't work out, you never know, right?
Okay.
You never know how Percy's going to feel too.
Exactly.
So.
He's the wild card.
Yeah, right. Exactly.
It feels super intuitive and natural watching you do it that way. So how might that vary a little bit if it was a dog?
Sure. That's a great question. So we do, you know, like I stated in the video, for our organization in particular, and what I would recommend, if you have handouts, whether you create them as an organization or, you know, you go to a trusted source, you know, ASPCA, that sort of thing, but have a handout that you can send home with someone that goes over introducing animals together. So when we look at dogs, I would say the big difference with dogs is we do offer the ability to do a dog introduction, a supervised introduction here at the shelter. So if a client was interested in a dog, they could bring their current pup and we could do a supervised introduction and see how they do. And it's not a guarantee, but it gives us a good idea if, you know, maybe we're going to be friends, or if, you know, maybe this is maybe not the right fit in terms of energy level or play style or any of those things. That's a huge helpful tool. So if you're able to do that, I definitely recommend it.
Well, let me ask you. So I noticed that, you know, you did mention, you know, you brought up the idea of if it's not a good match, being able to, you know, bring the animal, bring it back to the shelter. That seems like an important part of it too.
It is. I definitely support an open return policy. You know, it's not to say that nobody is disappointed if a pet comes back like, oh no, it didn't work out, but really you want clients to feel safe and you want them to feel comfortable bringing that animal back, because certainly what we don't want to do is put a client or a pet, you know, one of our shelter animals in a situation where they're stuck. You know, if I'm adopting and I take an animal home and I feel like there's going to be a lot of judgment for me bringing that animal back, I mean, I might seek alternative means, and we would always rather our animals, you know, come back to us. If somebody is able to rehome and is a trusted friend, wonderful. But if someone's in a situation where they really don't have other options, we always want to be that option. And we always want to get as much information from them as we can so that we could help them find a good fit.
That makes perfect sense. And again, it fits very much kind of in what you've been modeling the whole time about, you know, building that rapport and that trust to really create natural connections to help people find the best mate for them. So, okay, I think we've got one video left for this evening. Do you want to go ahead and set that up for us?
Yeah. So actually, we have one or two.
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm getting ahead of myself. Yeah, I apologize. So we have the next one, correct me if I'm wrong, but is about what happens when we have an animal with an age restriction, with an animal that doesn't do well, typically with younger kids, right?
Yes. So this is just a basic introduction of kind of how we would counsel there and kind of how we could maybe steer towards another potential adoptable animal. So let's roll that clip and see what that looks like.
Hi there. Is there something I can help you with?
Yeah, I'm interested in this little buddy right here.
Okay, yeah.
Hi.
So she just came in. She is an owner surrender.
Okay.
She's really fearful. So in her previous home, she was really afraid of the kids. So are there any kiddos in the home?
Yeah, I have a 3-year-old.
Okay, so we're going to recommend older kids for her. It sounds like in her previous home, she lived with a toddler and another youngster about 5 years old, and she was starting to nip at the kids and was just a little bit, it sounds like, overwhelmed in the previous home. So I'm going to recommend maybe somebody else.
Okay.
Have you had a chance to look around at all?
Not really, so I guess we can go look around. It's a little sad though. You were really sweet. I wanted to see what you were like. Yeah.
Yeah, I think so. Let me see here. I think Snackers might actually be a really good fit for you.
Okay.
He just came in. He did live previously with small kids.
Okay.
What are we looking for in terms of energy level?
I'm kind of just looking for like a really social, confident dog to kind of get my family acclimated to having pets and everything.
Yeah.
And in general, like I'd be able to kind of leave my job during like my break time and go see the animal, like to make sure that they're doing well and everything. So they would have to be home alone for like a couple hours in a day before I come back to take them for a walk or check in on them. But just kind of an active friend to go out to play with us or to go for walks and everything. Dog park if they're good with that and they want to.
Sure.
So just kind of a more active younger dog.
Great. Well, let's go take a look at Snackers, and we'll kind of go from there. If that sounds like a good fit, we can get you walking.
Awesome.
So yeah, let's go take a look.
Cool.
So what I take away from that is really about kind of knowing the animals, but because that allows you to then be able to, if somebody finds an animal that they're attracted to, but for some reason isn't a good match, be able to offer better alternatives.
Absolutely. Yes. So like it's a perfect example in there. You can see he's disappointed. Like he understands why, but he's still disappointed because like, look how cute that dog is, right?
Sure.
So it's really important to like when you have that interaction to really go the next step and say, all right, let me help you find someone else, because certainly we could send them on their way and just be like, no, this dog's not good with kids, like find somebody else. But part of that conversational adoption and part of that matchmaking is really then taking that next step and saying, all right, let me look them up. Or if you cleaned in dogs this morning and you're like, I really love this dog, I really think this dog would be great with kids, or certainly like we haven't noted any kind of behaviors where it wouldn't. It's then being able to take that client and be like, let's meet and see how it is. So
all right, that makes perfect sense. It's all about just trying to keep the conversation going, it feels like, and just helping people find where they're ultimately trying to get to. So okay, I was ahead of myself last time, but I think there is one more video now, right? And now, correct me again, let me know if I'm wrong, but I think what we're going to talk about is what you're going to demonstrate for us is how the conversation might change a little bit if we're dealing with younger animals.
Yes, so that's exactly right. So this is actually kind of a part 2 to the last clip we saw. So we're going to go meet Snackers, which is the puppy that I'm recommending to this family with young kids. And you can it's definitely an overview, but you can get an idea of kind of how we would structure that counseling for a young puppy that, someone might be taking home. So let's see that clip.
You've got young kiddos at home.
Yeah.
So this is Snackers.
Okay.
So Snackers is 6 months old.
Okay.
And it sounds like you're looking for someone with higher energy that you can train.
Yeah.
That's fantastic. So she came in as a stray, so we don't really know what her background is. But so far, she's been really friendly since she's been in our care.
Yeah.
So you said you're able to come home kind of midday.
Yeah, to check in on the pup.
Great.
See how they're doing and everything.
Yeah, so she's only 6 months old. We don't know if she's potty trained or not, so that's something you'll definitely need to do.
Yeah.
We'll send home all that information too with you, but definitely coming home in the middle of the day is going to be wonderful to be able to let her out and getting her on a really strict schedule to start with, like when she goes out. So first thing in the morning, and then before you go to work, if you're able to come home middle of the day, when you come home after dinner, right? And the most important thing is to keep that really strict to start off with. Once she gets into the habit of it, she'll be great.
Okay.
She was already spayed when she came in, so we didn't do that, but we did verify that she was spayed.
Yeah.
We did make sure that she's microchipped, so we will register the microchip at the time of adoption.
Okay.
So that means that if she ever gets out and ends up at a shelter, that they will be able to contact you and let you know that she was there. She's 6 months old, so she's had a heartworm test, and that was negative. And then she has been started on a flea tick and heartworm preventative. So that we do a monthly here. Just check in with your vet and see what they recommend in terms of, what kind of flea and tick preventative and heartworm medication. There are lots of options out there. She's up to date on her core vaccine. So she's had her rabies vaccine and the canine distemper vaccine are both going to be good for a year.
Okay.
And the rabies vaccine is what you'll need in order to get her licensed. So every dog in the state needs to have a license.
Yeah.
And that's basically just proof that she's had that rabies vaccine. So you'll want to just check in with your city or municipality and see how that works. It does vary from sort of, area to area on how you license. And then she's also been dewormed.
Okay.
So everybody that comes in gets dewormed. So should be clear of intestinal parasites, but go ahead and follow up with your vet when you get her home too.
Yeah.
I usually recommend a vet visit within that first month of adoption. And then, she is only 6 months old, so she'll probably really benefit from like a basic manners class.
Yeah, she's a little jumpy.
Yeah.
That's okay, you're a baby.
We definitely recommend, sort of your fear-free training. So we don't recommend things like prong collars or choke chains. Definitely you want to find someone who uses positive reinforcement. It tends to be the most effective. And then for your little one at home, just supervising their play.
Okay.
You know, making sure that they're not stealing toys from each other, or that, you know, she's not knocking down your little one, and you know, she's not pulling her tail or something like that.
Definitely.
As youngsters tend to do. So yeah, and then she's also not fully potty trained.
Of course.
Probably not at all, actually.
Yeah,
so I would just assume she's not. So keeping her on a strict schedule for potty training will be really important initially. So just, you know, being really, really consistent about when she's going out.
Okay.
And we will send home all that information with you too at the time of adoption, so you have resources that you can refer to. Do you have any questions or concerns or anything at this point?
No, I think you covered a lot of it. It makes a lot of sense. There she goes as she's playing. But yeah, so she seems like she'd be a really fun addition to my family. Can we take her for a walk next? Or?
Yeah, absolutely. Okay. So that'll be the next step. We'll go ahead and I'll grab a leash for you, and we'll take her out on the trail and see how she does, and then we can go from there.
Okay, awesome.
Great.
Well, it looked like all that work that you put into it ended up making a really good match. Certainly, certainly the puppy looked pretty happy about everything. So, all right, well, we're gonna move on to some Q&A here to wrap things up. But before we do, just to ask, we saw a lot of great stuff tonight. What if you were going to kind of bring it back to sort of just a handful of core principles about what to remember when doing conversational adoptions? What would those be?
I would say you're going to want to touch on the client's home life. For an application, I would recommend something very short, but you just want that contact information. So, do we live in a house? Do we live in an apartment? How many people in the home? Are there kids? Are there other pets? Those are all important things to touch on. If someone's renting, we don't require a landlord check or anything. I usually just ask, do you know what your pet policy is? Most people do. If they don't, you can always recommend, hey, we could do a hold if you wanted to double check and just make sure. That being said, if you think someone is perhaps, not being fully truthful, you could always say, I will need to check. That's not something that we typically start with, but it is something that we can, require if needed. Same with, vaccination records. Not something we require or even really ask about, but if we feel like we need to, we will. Making sure that we're conveying all of the information that we have for that pet. So we've seen the conversation side tonight, but also we send home all of that information again at the time of adoption. So when we process that paperwork, they're getting their full medical record, they're getting handouts on everything we've talked about for behaviors. So they're really set to go. And when we're processing the paperwork, we're also summarizing all of that again. So really being thorough about giving out the animal's information and hitting on it a couple of times because people will come up with new questions. And there's always a possibility. Especially in that last clip, we've got snackers all over, it's very exciting when you're meeting a puppy and you might miss that first time around about potty training or a vaccine, or that question might come up again. So it's important to be thorough with the information. And it's also important to, keep that positive mindset of if you walk up and you see them and you're like, oh yeah, no, that dog is cowering, that's okay. Just be let's see who we can find and make it a really positive experience for the client. So even if they walk away, if we don't have anyone for them right now, if they walk away without a pet today, the idea is they had a positive experience, so they would come back.
Yeah, so it's natural and it's friendly, and we're trying to put animals in homes, but the transparency feels very important to make sure that we're creating a connection that's not just going to work in the short term, but that's going to lead to a happy ongoing situation.
Correct. Yes.
All right. Well, we do have at least here. Here's a question from the audience to talk through, and it's: do you recommend mandatory meet and greets with dogs?
So it depends on the dog. We have a full behavior team. So if we are, seeing some maybe dog reactivity in shelter, likely our behavior team will do an assessment, maybe do a dog intro here between shelter dogs, see how they do. And we might require a meet and greet for a certain dog, especially if we have a dog that has a really maybe they're just really rude with other dogs. They love them, but they're a lot of dog.
Right.
That's not going to be every dog's cup of tea. So we might recommend that dog must meet a potential doggy sibling. But if we have a dog that comes in that really we haven't seen any behavior concerns, they seem friendly, we don't necessarily require them. So I think if you're able to do it, it should vary kind of dog to dog based on the animals in your care and the behaviors you've seen.
So one of the things that I guess I'm hearing out of this is that while you have direction and an idea of what you want to do, in general, pragmatism is an important part of this too, and being able to be a little bit situational.
It is, yes. And that is the wonderful thing about adoption counseling is it is absolutely moldable to whatever system you have, whatever situation comes up. It's very, very flexible because it is not a rigid system. You know, it doesn't, step A does not have to lead to step B, step C, et cetera, you know, based on kind of what you have going on or how a conversation is going or how the situation is playing out, you're able to pivot very easily.
So here's another question that somebody has asked, and that is, do you find it challenging to train people to make natural adoption, to make conversational adoptions feel natural?
Sure. I would say it depends. At first, I think it can be a little bit intimidating, especially when we have a new hire jumping in, because it does look effortless or sort of effortless. I hope I look effortless. It does look more effortless, but what we find is what we look for really, what I look for when I hire adoption specialists is a high level of customer service. So it's always wonderful if I have someone coming in that has animal handling experience, but what I'm looking for are like baristas, right? I'm looking for somebody that has a high level of customer service experience and that ability to, be customer forward, because it's much easier to jump in and start speaking to people if you have that sort of internal natural drive or if you've had that training in the past. So for me, the animal handling, as long as they are willing to do it, that's something that we can teach and train. What is harder to train is that, inherent ability to speak to others. So what I look for in an adoption counselor is, a love of the customer.
That makes perfect sense. Well, let me throw out here another one is, what are the downsides to conversational adoption? Like, are there challenges that are sort of unique to the approach that you're laying out?
Oh, sure, of course. So I would say for the most part, 95% of people that come into a shelter are there for positive purposes. They are there to adopt an animal. But, you've got that percentage of people that are maybe, not so interested in adopting, or they're not being forthcoming about information about their lives, or, maybe they're planning to, breed the rabbit that they adopt. So I think that one of the challenges for the conversational adoptions is reading in that gray area. I will have adoption counselors come up and say, I've got a feeling, right? And we never want to make a snap decision based on one feeling. So if we have a client that comes in that we feel like is maybe not on the up and up for whatever reason, it's always a collaborative decision on what the next steps are going to be, whether that means we're going to require some more information, right? So we might require a landlord verification or some vaccination records or something like that. Or if we're going to potentially deny a client an adoption. Those tend to be few and far between. And in our system, we always have an adoption counselor who's concerned, find a supervisor, and then that can also escalate up to the manager. And we have kind of a collaborative decision that gets made so that we're certainly looking to be as non-judgmental as possible, but there is the reality that sometimes it's not going to be a good fit, and maybe it's not going to be a good fit at all.
The last question is, if somebody is considering, trying to implement a more informal or a conversational approach, what would be your advice for them?
Sure. So if you are working from a framework of maybe you have a particularly long adoption application, right? Maybe you have several questions. What I would do is take a look at that and really break it all the way down. I would try to capture the bare bones of information for the household on your actual application. So when you redo that, you're looking for contact information like name, address, phone number, email address. You're looking at, again, like I said, that like who lives in the house, you know, kids or not. You might want to know if they rent. It might be important to you to know kind of what kind of house they have, and then kind of the animals in that. And if there's anything they're interested in learning, you know, if you might be, you know, you might add options for how do I potty train, you know, how do I introduce to my other pet, that sort of thing. But you want to keep it about one page. And then what I'd recommend doing is take the questions that you have already, even if there's a lot of them, and sort of distill it down into what are the top questions. And then as you're training, especially as you're starting this out, you can always carry a clipboard or, you know, have those questions at the ready when you're first learning. So you can make sure that you hit all of those questions as you go along. And then as you do it more and more, you just automatically start asking those questions without the help of that aid. But it is perfectly acceptable to have that aid in the beginning. And that's one of the ways we do train new staff as well, is we have sort of a visual aid that's like, here's some really good questions to ask. Make sure you hit all of these in that conversation. So it can start off a little bit stilted, right? You know, you might be reading a little bit of that, you know, as you go. You're like, what did I miss? But as you get more comfortable, then it becomes more natural.
Yeah, and I would say that one of the things that becomes really obvious watching you is that having that more open style really allows your sort of passion and excitement to come through. And you can see that the people that you're speaking with, I think, pick up on that and react to it as well. I want to say a big thank you to everybody who joined us today. It's awesome to have you. It's encouraging to see how many people are open to kind of new and more effective ways of doing things. So thank you again for your time. Good night.